This is for your betrayal, witch.
I didn't lose my composure when I discovered the truth. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't even slam a door. Instead, I calmly brewed myself a strong cup of black coffee, walked into my workshop, and grabbed the heavy-duty torque wrench I use for the toughest jobs. Then I headed straight toward my wife's pristine white Lexus SUV, a vehicle whose optional features alone cost more than most people's entire cars. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I was about to turn mine into a carefully orchestrated performance that would leave our entire neighborhood absolutely stunned. My name is David Harrison, and I'm the owner of Harrison's Classic Garage. In the automotive restoration world, my name means something. For the past 14 years, I've used these calloused hands to transform a run-down single-bay workspace into the most sought-after vintage car restoration shop within 60 miles. My customer list reads like a who's who of local society: district court judges, prominent surgeons, successful attorneys, even our state representative. But on that particular morning, I would use these same hands that had lovingly restored hundreds of engines to systematically dismantle my deteriorating marriage piece by piece. The whole nightmare began 5 days earlier. I'd just finished an intensive restoration job on the Lieutenant Governor's 1965 Jaguar E-Type, which meant I arrived home nearly 3 hours later than my usual time. When I pulled into our driveway around 10 p.m., I immediately noticed that Jessica's Lexus wasn't in the garage. I tried calling her cell phone repeatedly, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. Checking our neighborhood's community message board, I saw that one of our nosier neighbors had posted a photo with a caption saying they'd spotted Jessica's distinctive white SUV parked at the downtown Marriott Grand Hotel. I didn't immediately jump to conclusions. I simply assumed she was attending another one of those tedious charity galas or book club meetings she was always involved with, so I drove downtown to give her a ride home. When I opened the passenger door of her Lexus, which was indeed parked in the hotel lot, I noticed a folded receipt that had slipped down into the side storage compartment. I picked it up and read it carefully. Room 418, registered to Jessica Harrison and Blake Morrison. Check-in time listed as 2:30 p.m. that afternoon. Marriott Grand Deluxe. King Suite with late checkout scheduled for 1 p.m. the following day. That was interesting. Very freaking interesting indeed. I didn't explode into rage right there in the parking lot. Instead, I carefully photographed the receipt exactly where I'd found it, making absolutely sure my phone's timestamp and location data were activated. This would serve as the first critical piece of evidence in my revenge strategy. I methodically searched the rest of her vehicle and discovered a pair of expensive men's cufflinks tucked into the small drawer in the center console. They definitely weren't mine. I recognized the brand as something far more expensive than anything I owned. I photographed those too, documenting every angle. Then I closed her car door carefully, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it, and drove directly to my garage rather than going home. I spent that entire night in the small break room at my shop, sitting in the darkness, methodically replaying every single one of Jessica's suspicious behaviors from recent months. Her sudden obsession with boutique fitness classes, those increasingly frequent girls' nights out that seemed to happen multiple times per week, the way she'd started talking about my work with barely concealed contempt, referring to my successful business as playing with broken toys in a dirty garage. I pulled out printed copies of our joint bank statements covering the previous 8 months and began analyzing them line by line under my desk lamp. I discovered several highly suspicious large expenditures, cash withdrawals of $800 here, $1,200 there, always on days when I was working late or out of town for parts. Even more interesting, I found evidence of a new premium credit card that had been opened in both our names, but I'd never seen any statements for it and certainly hadn't signed any application. So, you think you're playing sophisticated chess, darling? Well, let me show you what a real strategic game looks like. I remembered that I'd installed a high-quality dash cam in Jessica's Lexus about 8 months earlier after she'd complained about an aggressive driver tailgating her. The camera had a backup memory card that automatically saved footage. I located that card in a drawer in my office where I kept spare parts and electronics. I inserted it into my laptop and began the tedious process of reviewing hours upon hours of footage, fast-forwarding through the mundane until I reached last Tuesday's recordings. What I heard made my blood run cold. then boiling hot. "Blake, honey, David is such a complete fool." Jessica's voice came through crystal clear on the audio. "He's literally eliminating himself working 70-hour weeks on those disgusting antique cars, completely oblivious to what we've been carefully planning for the past 4 months." A man's smooth voice responded, "Just hold on a few more weeks, sweetheart. Once we get the divorce papers signed and finalized, the house becomes yours free and clear. We sell off that pathetic garage business. I've already got 3 potential buyers lined up, and boom, we've got our complete startup capital for the premium wellness spa I've been designing. I found the absolutely perfect commercial location downtown, just waiting for the funding to come through." Jessica's laugh was cruel and confident. "He'll sign absolutely anything I put in front of him. That spineless doormat has never once stood up to me in 11 years of marriage. Besides, what possible evidence could he find? I've been incredibly careful." I closed the laptop, and despite the rage burning inside me, a cold smile spread across my face. "Evidence, sweetheart? You've just handed me an entire feature-length documentary film." At 5:30 a.m. the following morning, I began executing phase 1 of my meticulously planned revenge. First, I called my longtime friend Thomas, a retired police detective who now worked as the senior fraud investigator for Regional Bank and Trust. After I explained my situation and showed him some of the preliminary evidence I'd gathered, his voice filled with professional concern mixed with personal sympathy. "David, are you absolutely certain you want to go down this road? This is going to get extremely ugly, extremely fast." I responded with a calmness that surprised even myself. "Thomas, she and that personal trainer Blake have already conspired to take absolutely everything from me. I'm talking about the house, my business, my life savings, even the pristine 1967 Cadillac Eldorado that my grandfather restored by hand and left to me in his will. Now it's my turn to make the opening move in this game." Thomas sighed deeply. "All right, I'll help you. Meet me at the main branch at 9:45 a.m. sharp tomorrow morning. I've arranged a private meeting with branch manager Patricia Wilson. We'll have exactly 20 minutes to present your case, so bring every piece of documentation you've got." After ending that call, I took a piece of paper and wrote out a brief note, photographed it with my phone for documentation purposes, then walked purposefully toward Jessica's Lexus. I retrieved my professional-grade valve stem tool from my extensive toolbox. With the precision and care I normally reserved for delicate engine work, I systematically loosened the valve core on each of her 4 tires, one at a time. The simultaneous hissing sound as all 4 expensive tires began deflating was oddly therapeutic, like the opening notes of a symphony I was composing. "Always check your tire pressure before any important trip, darling," I whispered to the empty garage. "That's basic vehicle maintenance 101. Guess you should have paid more attention when I tried teaching you." Within the first 90 minutes of starting my plan, I had completed 4 critical preliminary tasks. First, I carefully removed the primary hard drive from our home security system, which I had personally installed throughout our house 2 years earlier. Every angle, every room, every entrance was recorded, including crystal clear footage of Blake coming and going at all hours while I was at work. Second, I gathered and organized every single legal document proving my sole ownership of Harrison's classic garage. Business licenses, property deeds, tax records, incorporation papers, everything. Third, I contacted all our utility providers, electric, gas, water, internet, and submitted formal requests for service suspension effective in exactly 72 hours, citing property owner extended overseas travel. The timing was deliberately calculated to give Jessica and Blake just enough time to notice something was wrong, but not nearly enough time to effectively counter it. Fourth, I created detailed backup copies of everything stored on 3 separate encrypted USB drives hidden in 3 different secure locations. That's the mechanic's mindset. Always plan 3 steps ahead of the potential breakdown. At precisely 9:45 a.m. the next morning, I stood in branch manager Patricia Wilson's office, presenting my complete evidence portfolio spread across her massive desk. Hotel receipts with timestamps, photographs of the cufflinks with metadata, complete transcripts of the dash cam recordings with audio timestamps. The garage's detailed income statements and tax returns for the previous 9 months, proving it was a thriving business, not the failing dump Jessica had described to Blake. Patricia adjusted her reading glasses and looked up at me with sympathy. Mr. Harrison, if I'm understanding correctly, you suspect your wife is planning to fraudulently misappropriate assets from your joint accounts? Not suspect. I know for certain, I replied firmly. I have recorded audio evidence of her and her boyfriend explicitly discussing their plan to liquidate my business, take the proceeds, and use my money to fund their new business venture. According to Banking Regulation Code Section 742B, in documented cases of reasonable suspicion regarding domestic financial misuse, you have the authority and actually the obligation to implement immediate protective account controls. Patricia looked toward Thomas, who nodded his confirmation. This is completely within established guidelines, Patricia. The bank has a clear legal obligation to protect customers from domestic financial exploitation. We've handled 12 similar cases just this year. Patricia sighed, clearly uncomfortable, but recognizing the legal necessity. Very well. I'll immediately process an emergency freeze on all joint accounts under both your names and permanently revoke authorization for all secondary credit cards. The full implementation will require approximately 36 hours for interstate banking clearances, but effective immediately. Any transaction exceeding $500 will require dual in-person authorization with government-issued identification from both account holders. I appreciate your help more than you know, Patricia, I said, shaking her hand firmly. Oh, there's one additional matter I need to address. I need to immediately cancel and close all business credit cards that were issued under Jessica's name that are associated with my company accounts. Patricia frowned slightly, pulling up records on her computer. Mr. Harrison, according to our records, these corporate cards were issued with your signature as the authorizing party and company owner. Are you certain about this? Absolutely certain, I replied, pulling a thick folder from my briefcase. However, if you examine our original corporate credit agreement, specifically page 18, section 7, paragraph C, you'll find that as the sole owner and primary account holder of Harrison's Classic Garage LLC, I retain the absolute right to revoke authorization for any associated credit instruments at any time for any reason, with or without cause. It's completely legal and binding. Patricia read through the document carefully, then nodded slowly. You're absolutely correct. I'll process the cancellations immediately. After leaving the bank, I drove directly to Harrison's Classic Garage, where my work supervisor and closest friend Marcus was waiting for me. Marcus was a genuinely intimidating figure. 6', 5 inches tall, built like a professional linebacker, with hands the size of dinner plates. He'd served 8 years as a heavy vehicle mechanic in the Marine Corps before joining my shop, and he was now my most trusted employee and the person I'd trust with my life. Boss, are you 100% sure you want to go through with this plan? Marcus asked, his deep voice filled with concern as he looked at the documents I'd handed him. I mean, I've got your back completely, but this is going to create one hell of a shitstorm in your neighborhood. I've never been more certain of anything in my entire life, I responded with absolute conviction. Jessica wants to start a war? Fine. I'll show her what a complete strategic blockade actually looks like. I handed Marcus an official-looking document with the company letterhead. This is the original proof of ownership documentation for that Lexus SUV. According to the purchase paperwork and title registration, that vehicle was purchased entirely through my business for alleged corporate use, and is therefore legally classified as a company asset. Based on this corporate asset recovery authorization form, you're now officially authorized to recover and impound said vehicle back to our garage facility for mandatory annual safety inspection and maintenance review. Marcus broke into a huge grin, the same aggressive smile I'd seen him use when he was about to tackle someone in our company softball league. Oh, I am going to absolutely enjoy this, boss. Miss Jessica is about to receive a very special surprise delivery, and somehow, I don't think she's going to be sending us any thank you cards. Over the following 2 hours, I completed what would prove to be the most critical component of my entire revenge operation. I contacted my personal attorney, Richard Blackwell, presenting him with an extremely detailed draft divorce agreement that seemed absolutely insane at first glance. David, have you completely lost your goddamn mind? Richard practically shouted, staring at the document I'd prepared with his eyes bulging in disbelief. According to these terms, you're voluntarily surrendering the house, half of all your savings accounts, your investment portfolio, and even your collection of vintage motorcycle parts. This is like voluntarily jumping into shark-infested waters while covered in blood and chum. This is financial self-destruction. No, Richard, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, I replied with complete calm. I know the agreement appears catastrophically unfavorable to me on the surface. However, I need you to pay very careful attention to the deliberately vague and ambiguous wording in Section 23 regarding the assumption and allocation of all outstanding debts and liabilities. Also, you'll notice I've specifically included a mandatory time constraint on the actual asset transfers section. All transfers must be completed within exactly 45 days of the agreement signing date, not a single day longer. Richard studied me intensely for a long moment, his legal mind working through the implications. Then his expression slowly transformed from shock to understanding to grudging admiration. You sneaky, calculating, brilliant son of a witch. This isn't a divorce agreement. This is an elaborate trap with legal tripwires everywhere. Let's just say it's a mechanic's way of thinking, I said with a slight shrug. When you're trying to fix a completely broken system, sometimes you first have to identify every single vulnerability and weak point, then exploit each one methodically. It's exactly like rebuilding a seized engine. Sometimes you have to let it completely fall apart before you can properly reconstruct it better than before. At approximately 1:30 p.m., I received a brief text message from Marcus consisting of just 3 words: mission accomplished, spectacular. 5 minutes later, a longer text arrived. Boss, you seriously should have seen her face when I hooked up the tow chains. It was like she'd swallowed a live grenade. The entire neighborhood came outside to watch the show. I counted at least 30 people recording on their phones. This is going to be legendary. I imagined Jessica's normally superior and condescending expression twisted into shock and confusion and helpless rage, and I couldn't suppress a genuine laugh. The first real laugh I'd had in months, but this was merely the appetizer. The main course was still coming, and it was going to be spectacular. At 3 p.m., my comprehensive plan entered its second operational phase. In my garage office, I held a confidential meeting with 4 of my most trusted longtime employees. Gentlemen, I need your complete cooperation and absolute discretion for what I'm about to ask, I said, making eye contact with each of them. Marcus, you're actually a pretty decent actor when you want to be. Starting immediately, you're going to become Marcus Wellington, recent lottery winner and newly minted millionaire with a strong personal interest in health, wellness, and promising investment opportunities. Marcus raised one thick eyebrow. What exactly do you need me to do, boss? I handed him a brand new prepaid smartphone and an embossed business card I'd had printed at a premium stationery shop. You're going to send a text message to this phone number. You'll schedule an appointment for a premium personalized health and wellness assessment. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., you're going to meet a self-proclaimed holistic wellness consultant and personal transformation coach named Blake Morrison, and you're going to be very, very interested in everything he has to say. And then what happens? Marcus asked, though I could see he was already starting to understand where this was heading. Then, I said, my smile growing wider, you're going to casually mention that you just won $8.5 million in the state lottery, and you're actively looking for promising investment opportunities in the health and wellness industry. You'll tell him you really like his energy and his whole vibe, and you feel like he's a genuinely authentic person you can trust. You'll say you're tired of financial advisors and want to work with real people who understand the common man's struggles. The entire office erupted in laughter. Boss, that smooth-talking con artist is going to swarm around Marcus like flies on fresh manure, Tony commented, wiping tears from his eyes. Are you absolutely sure this is legal? Completely legal, I assured them. Marcus is simply a private citizen who happens to be interested in personal wellness services. Nobody can legally prevent him from saying he won the lottery. That's just conversation. He's going to borrow Eddie's restored 1990 Bentley for the day, wear that ridiculously expensive suit we bought for the Las Vegas Auto Show last year, and play the role of a simple-minded lucky guy who suddenly has more money than sense. This isn't illegal entrapment. It's just a social experiment in human greed. The seeds of my plan were now planted deep in fertile soil. Now I just had to wait patiently for harvest season, and that season arrived much faster than even I had anticipated. The following 72 hours became a perfectly orchestrated symphony of controlled chaos and systematic destruction. First, Jessica discovered that every single one of her credit cards was completely frozen, preventing her from making any purchases or withdrawing any cash from any ATM. Then, when she rushed to her Lexus to drive to the bank to confront them in person, she discovered the vehicle had completely vanished, with only Marcus's official corporate asset recovery notice zip-tied to our mailbox explaining that the company vehicle had been lawfully impounded for mandatory annual inspection. According to detailed reports from multiple neighbors who witnessed the scene, Jessica's screaming at that precise moment could have woken the dead in the cemetery 4 miles away. She paced frantically across our front lawn, shouting into her phone, desperately trying to contact the bank, her lawyer, the police, anyone who might help, but obviously getting absolutely nowhere with any of them. When your credit cards are frozen solid, your luxury vehicle disappears, and all your emergency contacts suddenly have very busy phone lines. That's when you truly begin to understand what real desperation actually feels like, I thought to myself, while watching the live feed from the security cameras I'd strategically left active in certain locations. Meanwhile, Blake Morrison, the smooth-talking personal trainer turned wellness consultant, was extremely busy meeting with his new potential investor, the supposedly wealthy Marcus Wellington. Marcus played his role absolutely perfectly, constantly talking about his lottery-winning experience and how he wanted to spend his newfound wealth on meaningful things like health and wellness. "You know, Blake," Marcus said while ostentatiously adjusting the borrowed Rolex on his wrist, "I used to work as a mechanic just like you used to work as a regular gym trainer. Guys like us who fought our way up from the bottom understand each other, you know? We should help each other succeed. What do they call that? Oh yeah, grassroots solidarity or something like that." "Absolutely, Marcus, I completely agree," Blake responded enthusiastically, practically salivating while handing Marcus one of his overpriced protein smoothies. "I'm in the process of launching an exclusive high-end wellness sanctuary that offers not just fitness training, but complete lifestyle transformation, customized nutrition planning, stress management therapy, holistic life coaching. It's a truly comprehensive wellness experience designed for successful people who demand the very best." "That sounds absolutely fantastic, man," Marcus replied, deliberately projecting naive enthusiasm. "How much startup investment capital would you need to get something like that off the ground?" Blake's eyes immediately lit up like a casino jackpot machine. "For the initial build-out and first-year operations, probably around $2.5 million. But I'm conservatively projecting ROI of at least 40% annually once we're established. Actually, I've already identified the absolutely perfect commercial location. It's just waiting for the funding to come through to lock it down." Very interesting," Marcus said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "So I won $8.5 million, and after taxes, I'm sitting on about $5.2 million. If I invest $2.5 million with you and become like a full partner, can I drink these protein shakes for free whenever I want? Because these are actually really good. Way better than the crap my wife makes at home." Blake nearly jumped out of his pricey gym outfit, grinning like he'd just hit the jackpot himself. "Absolutely. Of course. I can even take you there right now. And yes, unlimited smoothies. That's a premium perk." "Let's hold off till tomorrow," Marcus said, standing up and patting his round belly for effect. "I should check with my financial advisor first, you know. Make sure I'm being smart. Oh, and I heard you've got a girlfriend? Is she joining this venture too?" Blake's smile faltered for just a second. Well, she's handling some personal stuff at the moment, but yes, she'll be involved. She's got incredible social ties and knows plenty of rich people around here." "Perfect," Marcus replied, slapping Blake's shoulder so hard it nearly knocked him forward. "I like family-style businesses. Feels more solid. See you tomorrow, brother." As Marcus walked out, Blake was already picturing the profits and how much he could secretly funnel into his own accounts. This guy is a gold mine dropped right in my lap, Blake thought, too blinded by greed to realize he was actually the prey. The next afternoon, Jessica and Blake received the divorce papers via certified mail from Richard's law office. Reading the terms, they could hardly contain their joy. "Look at this!" Jessica shouted, waving the document like a trophy. "He gave me the house, plus half the savings and investments. That coward must be scared out of his mind." Blake grabbed the papers, scanning them with suspicion. "Wait, let me check for traps. Property transfer clause, asset split, personal items, debt section. It all looks pretty straightforward." "Of course it does, because we won," Jessica gloated. "David's always been a weak little pushover. He's terrified of public drama ruining his garage's image, so he'll pay anything to avoid it. We've got him right where we want him." Blake kept reading, frowning at one clause. Second party agrees to take on all debts tied to the property as of transfer date, including mortgages, liens, and other financial obligations. That wording's vague. What exactly does that cover? "Who cares?" Jessica waved it off. "Probably just taxes or HOA dues. The point is, we won. David's finally paying for being a boring loser. Let's sign before he changes his mind." "Maybe we should have a real estate lawyer review it," Blake muttered. "Some of this wording is tricky." "Lawyer? Waste of money," Jessica snapped, tapping her nails on the page. "Besides, Marcus is coming to see the place tomorrow. If he invests, we'll need the cash from this deal right away. Waiting is too risky." Greed won out. That same afternoon, they signed the papers at a Starbucks without reading the fine print. "This house is officially mine," Jessica declared, eyes glowing. "First thing, I'm changing the locks. Second, I'm tossing all of David's greasy junk out of the garage. That's going to be our home gym and yoga studio." That night, they changed the locks and plastered social media with photos and captions like, "New chapter, real love wins," "The life we deserve," and "Grateful for courage and truth." They had no clue they'd just walked straight into a trap. The next morning, I called Richard. "Are the documents filed?" "Yes," he confirmed. "The second mortgage was approved. 70% of the house's value, about $720,000. Funds will be in your account within 2 days. The debt stays with the property. It's legal, but brutal." "Perfect," I said. "We'll finish before Jessica and Blake even know what happened. By the time they realize, it'll be too late." "You're sure this is airtight?" Richard asked. "No risk at all," I said. "I'm still the owner until transfer is complete. State law allows me to take a mortgage against it. And that vague clause in the divorce papers means Jessica inherits every liability, including this one. It's like engine work. You've got to check underneath, because that's where the real problems hide." 4 days later, Jessica opened a letter from the bank. First payment due on the new mortgage, $14,200 immediately. She called Richard's office, shrieking so loud she barely sounded human. "What the hell is this? What new mortgage? This has to be a mistake." Richard's voice stayed calm. "That's a legal second mortgage David filed before transfer. According to Section 23 of the divorce papers you signed, you agreed to take on all debts tied to the house. Everything is valid and binding. Your monthly payment is $5,400 for the next 30 years. Jessica lost it, cursing nonstop before storming into Blake's place and throwing the notice in his face. "You idiot!" she screamed. "You didn't catch this? Now we owe $720,000. That's $5,400 a month for 30 years. Blake's face went ghost white. "Don't panic, baby. We've got Marcus's investment. He's coming tomorrow. Once we get his $2.5 million, we can pay it off." "Pay it off?" Jessica's voice was razor sharp. "We don't even have a location. You only looked at random listings online. We're drowning in debt, and your plan is to rely on some lottery guy you met 3 days ago?" "Marcus is our only hope," Blake said, voice shaking. "He'll come tomorrow and everything will be fine. Trust me." The next day, Marcus didn't show up. His phone went straight to voicemail and no texts were answered. Blake sat at the gym for 6 hours, waiting, but Marcus never came. The so-called millionaire had disappeared. "That son of a witch scammed us!" Blake exploded, slamming his fist into a locker so hard he broke 2 knuckles. "I knew it. A lottery winner? Who the hell wins that? It was a lie." In reality, Marcus Wellington, the millionaire, had already finished his job and was back at Harrison's classic garage, working as my shop manager. But things were only starting to fall apart for Blake and Jessica. By the second week, Blake's clients demanded refunds. Someone had leaked lab test results online, exposing that his premium muscle formula was nothing more than cornstarch and cheap laxatives. One furious customer called screaming, "I paid $400 for your protein powder. It's starch and laxatives. You're a fraud. I'm reporting you everywhere." That same day, Jessica got a formal letter from the HOA board. The new chairman, a retired forensic accountant with zero tolerance for nonsense, demanded she explain $22,000 in landscaping costs with no receipts or contracts. She had 10 business days to provide proof, or the matter would go to the police. Jessica knew she had no proof. She'd spent the money on handbags, spa trips, and fancy dinners with Blake. Everything unraveled fast. The bank called daily for overdue mortgage payments. Credit agencies wrecked their scores. Debt collectors mailed threats. Their dream life was crumbling. The final blow came at the neighborhood's annual summer barbecue. I rented a booth, pretending I was showing car restoration videos. In truth, I had spent 4 days editing recordings, photos, invoices, and dashcam clips into a 15-minute expose. When Jessica stepped on stage to give her farewell speech as HOA chair, I turned on my projector. Behind her, on a massive screen, the community saw private photos of her and Blake, followed by crystal-clear audio. "David's such an idiot. He'll sign anything. What proof could he ever find?" Then came the lab reports on Blake's fake supplements, followed by evidence of Jessica's stolen HOA funds, phony invoices, missing receipts, money trails straight to her. Finally, my voice filled the speakers. "Hello, neighbors. I'm David Harrison. For 10 years, I've served this community, fixing cars, appliances, whatever you needed. Meanwhile, Jessica, my wife, used her role as HOA chair to steal your money and bankroll her affair with this con man. Remember last year's fence rule that cost everyone thousands? That contract went to Blake's brother-in-law. Today, I'm just showing the truth. Starting next week, Harrison's Classic Garage will give all residents a 30% discount. Thank you for your support." The crowd of 400 erupted. People booed, cursed, demanded answers. Phones recorded everything. Jessica's friends scattered. Blake tried to speak, but the mic was cut. They shoved their way out through angry neighbors like hunted animals. By nightfall, the videos hit social media. News outlets ran with it. Headlines screamed, "Community betrayed." Soon the bank foreclosed after more missed payments. A TV expose revealed the dangers of Blake's products. Police charged Jessica with embezzlement. 5 clients sued Blake for fraud and damages. Their relationship collapsed. Neighbors reported screaming matches. One night, police responded to Jessica chasing Blake with kitchen scissors while he hid behind couch cushions. The report called it severe domestic dispute. 2 months later, their house was sold at auction. I bought it through an anonymous LLC for 35% under market value. No one knew it was me. Jessica and Blake vanished. Jessica avoided prison by agreeing to repay the HOA plus penalties and serve 4,000 hours of community service, picking trash along the highway in an orange vest. Blake wasn't so lucky. He got 26 months in federal prison for fraud and selling tainted products. Reports said he dropped 50 pounds and lost all his swagger behind bars. I rented their house to a struggling single mom at a third of the market price. My garage tripled in size. I hired 6 apprentices, and business thrived. Every weekend, I cruised my fully restored 69 Mustang Boss 429, rebuilt by my own hands from rust to perfection. Sometimes I recall Jessica's last words as police hauled her away. "You ruined everything." She screamed, mascara smeared, hair wild. I told her calm and steady, "No, I showed the truth. You ruined yourself." Later, I found one of her $700 Hermes scarves in the shop. I used it to polish the Mustang, then hung it on the wall. When customers ask, I say, "It's a reminder, if you don't maintain what's yours, it'll fail when you need it most." Same with cars, same with people. Revenge isn't cold, it's precise. You wait, you prepare. Then you strike at the perfect time. My plan worked. I rebuilt not just cars, but my life. Jessica and Blake became a cautionary tale about greed. The real reward wasn't revenge. It was finding my value again, through my own work, my own hands. I'm no longer just a mechanic. I'm a respected craftsman, a man who stood tall, fought for what's right, and reclaimed his dignity. That's worth more than anything they ever stole.